Welcome to the Vault of Lost Tales podcast.
Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
This is where we take the sources you send us and really try to pull out the key stuff for you, nice and quick.
That's the plan.
So today, we're diving into something specific. A short story, actually. The Night Wire by H.F. Arnold.
A classic of weird fiction, yeah.
Exactly. And we're not just, summarizing it. We want to look at why it works so well, why it's kind of stuck around. And also, who was this H.F. Arnold? Did he, influence horror much beyond this one story?
It's a really interesting question, especially since he's not exactly a household name.
Right. So if you've maybe never heard of Arnold, stick around. This story, it still packs a punch.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So the sources we looked at included some Reddit threads talking about the story, Arnold's IMDb page, which is, pretty brief,
Yeah.
and a few different analyses, people unpacking the Night Wire online. So we're aiming to give you a good sense of the story itself, why it's creepy, and maybe shed a little light on the mystery of the author.
Okay, sounds good. Let's get into the Night Wire itself then. It first showed up in Weird Tales, September 1926.
Right, Weird Tales. That's a name a lot of genre fans will know. Hugely important pulp magazine back in the day. Sci-fi, fantasy, horror. It had it all.
So we're talking nearly 100 years ago. But this story, it pops up again almost 90 years later in the Big Book of Ghost Stories.
Which really says something, doesn't it? For a short piece to have that kind of staying power.
It absolutely does. It must really get under your skin somehow.
I think it does. It starts pretty grounded, actually. You're in this wire service office, late night, seaport town out west. The narrator's the night manager.
Okay.
And there's this one operator on duty, John Morgan. But he's not just any operator. He's a double man.
Oh.
Super skilled.
What does that mean, a double man?
It means he can handle 2 telegraph wires and type on 2 typewriters simultaneously without making mistakes. Like peak efficiency, almost machine-like.
Wow, okay. That's impressive, but I'm guessing things don't stay efficient for long.
No, not really.
Duh.
Around 3 a.m., things get weird. Morgan just starts taking down messages on a second wire.
Okay.
But this wire, it's supposedly coming from a town the narrator's never even heard of. Ibico.
Gibico. Never heard of it either. Sounds ominous already.
And the messages themselves, they're terrifying.
Yeah.
They describe this thick, heavy fog rolling into Zibico, and it smells bad.
Oh, great. A smelly fog.
Yeah, and it's not normal fog. It apparently blocks out lights, stops traffic, just keeps getting denser and denser. And the local sexton, he's panicking, saying it's coming from the graveyard.
From the graveyard. Okay, that's classic horror right there. Primal fear stuff.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it escalates quickly. They send out rescue parties to figure out what this fog is, where it's really coming from.
Let me guess, they don't report back.
Nope. They send bigger search parties after them.
Yeah.
Same result. Silence. It's like Cibico is just being swallowed.
So the only connection is this wire operator.
Pretty much. Our view narrows right down to this guy, stuck on the 13th floor of his building in Zibico. He reports they've lost all contact with the outside. Cut off.
13th floor, nice touch.
Isn't it? And his messages get frantic. He says the fog is swirling with almost human agony. He catches these awful glimpses, people running, screaming, but there's this unseen wind. It's pure chaos.
Just glimpses, that's often scarier than seeing everything clearly.
Exactly. Then the fog itself changes. It stops being just, vapor, becomes this shapeless mass.
A shapeless mass? What does that even mean?
Well, it gets worse. He then sees fog figures.
Fog figures?
Yeah, and they're consuming bodies, people lying on the ground, stripped, writhing.
Okay, it's graphic, especially for 1926.
It's incredibly visceral and disturbing and completely unexplained, which makes it even creepier, right? It just bypasses logic.
Yeah, totally. What happens next? Does he describe more?
The view gets obscured by this hot vapor, and then the vapor starts changing color, like it's lit up from inside. But he realizes the colors are reflections from the sky.
The sky?
Yeah. These unearthly, brilliant, swirling lights appear. At first, they seem dangerous, but then they give off this feeling of force and friendliness.
Friendliness, that's unexpected, but still dangerous.
Apparently, yes. Like, friendly, but overwhelmingly intense, still harmful.
Yeah.
It's a really weird, ambiguous detail. And then, nothing.
The line goes dead.
Abruptly.
Yeah.
Transmission ends. Silence from Zebico.
Wow. Okay, but wait, you said there was a twist back in the narrator's office.
Ah, yes. The final horror. The narrator goes over to Morgan, the operator, and he finds him dead. Slumped over.
Oh, no. From the strain.
Well, here's the really chilling part. The narrator realizes Morgan has been dead for hours.
What? But He was taking
Stop-
down the messages?
Exactly. Typing away dispatch after dispatch, even though he was already dead.
How is that?
The story hints at this idea of a sensitized brain and automatic fingers, like his body just kept recording the impressions even after death. It's profoundly unsettling.
It is deeply creepy.
Wow. And there's more. The main office, Chicago, confirms wire. 2, the one the Zebico messages supposedly came in on. It hadn't even been used all night.
So the messages, they didn't come through the wire survey.
Apparently not. And the final nail in the coffin of reality. The narrator checks maps, world atlases.
Yeah.
No town called Zebico exists. Anyway.
So it was never real. Or it was real, but not part of our world.
That's the question, isn't it? It makes Zebico feel like this place outside of known space, something that maybe shouldn't be reachable by telegraph wires.
Man, so many layers of weirdness, the atmosphere in that office, the mystery of Zebico, the fog, the lights.
And Morgan typing after death, that detail just sticks with you, blurs the line between life and death, mechanism and consciousness. It's like residual horror imprinted on the body.
Yeah, definitely. And the lights, too, that ambiguity, friendly but harmful. That's not your standard monster stuff. It's more like cosmic indifference or something beyond our understanding.
Exactly. It taps into that Lovecraftian vibe of encountering forces that aren't necessarily evil, just vast, incomprehensible, and dangerous by their very nature. It subverts expectations.
It plays on all those deep fears, doesn't it? Being powerless, facing the unknown, reality itself feeling thin.
And we, the readers, are right there with the narrator, stuck, helpless, just watching this horror unfold remotely. That vicarious dread is so effective.
The format helps too, right? The wire dispatches, like short bursts, sudden stops.
Oh, absolutely. It feels urgent, fragmented, like you're getting information overload in the middle of a crisis. It mirrors the breakdown happening in Zebico. A brilliant choice.
It really holds up. I mean, you can see why people compare it to later stuff.
Yeah, the sources mentioned Fritz Leiber's Smoke Ghost, King's a Mist, even things like The Walking Dead or Carpenter's The Fog. Not direct copies, obviously, but you see echoes of that atmospheric dread, the inexplicable threat.
That's a pretty big legacy for one short story.
It is. And apparently, H.P. Lovecraft himself was a fan. That's a major stamp of approval in the weird fiction world back then.
So yeah, one source said you could print it today and it would still freak people out.
I think they're probably right. The dread building is just masterful.
Okay, so the story's amazing, but what about the guy who wrote it? H.F. Arnold. You said the trail goes cold.
Yeah, it gets pretty thin here. H.F. Arnold is basically known for The Night Wire. That's pretty much it.
Really? Just the one story?
Overwhelmingly, yes. We know he lived from 1902 to 1963. But finding other stories by him, especially ones that got anthologized, like The Night Wire, is tough. One Reddit user dug into the ISFDB, the speculative fiction database, and yeah, The Night Wire is the one that keeps showing up.
Huh.
It does make you wonder, doesn't it? Why just the one big hit in the genre?
So what else do we know? The IMDb page.
Right, IMDb. It lists him as a writer, obviously, because of adaptations or readings of The Night Wire on podcasts like Cinefiction Radio recently and the Ghost Story Guys a few years back.
So the story's still getting out there.
Definitely. But the other credit, interesting, he is listed as uncredited publicity crew for the movie Bulldog Drummond.
Publicity? Like movie promotion?
Seems like it, back in 1929. So maybe he worked in, film promotion or something similar. It's just a tiny glimpse.
So maybe writing wasn't his main gig.
It's possible, which might explain the limited fiction output. But it's still striking that this one story, apparently just 4 pages long and weird tales, is considered such a gem of terror.
Yeah, 4 pages. And Lovecraft liked it. Must have really stood out.
It suggests influence isn't always about quantity, Sometimes one perfect shot hits the bullseye and resonates for decades.
It's fascinating, though. Why do some writers create one absolute killer piece in a genre and then that's it? Or they move on?
It's hard to say. Maybe it was a specific idea, a specific fear they needed to exercise, and they did it perfectly in that one story. Perhaps they felt they'd said all they needed to say on that theme.
Or maybe life just took them in a different direction, like that publicity job hint suggests.
Could be. Whatever the reason, the story itself, The Night Wire, it had elements that felt really fresh, using the wire service, that contemporary tech, as the conduit for cosmic horror. That blend was innovative.
Yeah, mixing the mundane and the utterly bizarre, and the fog itself, the lights. It wasn't just a ghost in a sheet.
No, definitely not. It was stranger, more atmospheric, more inexplicable. And those elements, that way of building dread through ambiguity and technological intrusion, might have subtly influenced later writers, even if they didn't know Arnold's name specifically.
It's like the story itself had an influence separate from the author's wider career.
Possibly. And someone on Reddit pointed out something else interesting, the way some parts of the Ibiko message use you. Like you see, you hear.
Oh, yeah. Like talking directly to the reader.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Almost a second-person feel and brief flashes. Which is pretty unusual for 1926. Makes you think of much later writers. So maybe he was experimenting with narrative voice in ways that were ahead of his time, too.
Huh. That adds another layer to him being more than just a one-hit wonder, even if that's all we mostly have.
Exactly. There are these hints of real innovation there.
Okay, so we've really gone down the wire, so to speak, into this story and its mysterious author. It's amazing how The Night Wire, almost a century old, still feels so effective.
It really is. Time hasn't dulled its edge much at all. I think that speaks to how well it taps into something fundamental about fear of the unknown.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's leave our listeners with this thought. The Night Wire is incredibly potent, but H.F. Arnold is largely unknown. Could it be that sometimes real deep horror connects with something so universal and unsettling, it doesn't actually matter if the author wrote 50 other books or just that one perfect, terrifying story? Maybe the story itself takes on a life of its own.
That's a great question to ponder. Does the power lie solely with the creator, or can a story tap into something bigger?
Definitely something to think about. We really encourage you, if you haven't already, find The Night Wire. Read it, see how it hits you today.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below.